Hi everyone, welcome back to this new video. Today I have this graphics card. This right here is an Asus Geforce GT730. This card is based on the GK208 graphics processor and it comes clocked in at 902 MHz. This card has 2GB of DDR3 VRAM which comes clocked in at 800 MHz. And this card also has 384 shading units, 32 TMUs, 8 ROPs and it supports up to DirectX 12. Let's see what this tiny GPU can do in 2021. Alright, first off, time to get this card out of its old home, which is my sister's old PC. The first thing that I noticed is that this GPU is tiny. The PCB is shorter than the PCIe slot. Time to clean the card and apply some new thermal paste. Taking the card apart was very easy, the heatsink is only held on by 4 screws and after that it comes right off. Now time to put on just a little bit of thermal paste and apply the cooler again. Now let's have a look at the card. This card is passively cooled and it's tiny. It only has a PCIe x 8 connector and it's a half height card. For video out, this card has VGA, HDMI and DVI. Now it's time to put this card into my PC. This PC features an Intel Core i7-3770K, 8GB of DDR3 RAM and an Asus Sabertooth Z77 motherboard. With the card in, you can see that the cooler, which is longer than the PCB, is almost shorter than a full-size PCIe x 16 slot. Time to boot up the PC with this card installed. After that, it was time to install the drivers. This went smooth and easy, just like how it should be. Now it's time for some benchmarks. First off, user benchmark. User benchmark showed that both my CPU and GPU were performing above expectations. Time to throw a more intensive benchmark at this card, Heaven. On the high quality preset, Heaven got an average FPS of 9.1 and a score of 229. Alright, time to test some games. First off, Minecraft. With medium settings and a render distance of 10 chunks, Minecraft ran absolutely perfect. I got an average FPS of 85 with 1% lows of 30 FPS and 0.1% lows of 12 FPS. Minecraft is absolutely playable on this card. Time to move on to another game that ran well, Roblox. On medium settings, Roblox ran an average FPS of 59 with 1% lows of 39 FPS and 0.1% lows of 2 FPS. This makes this card suitable for Roblox as well. Alright, moving on to Freddy Fazbears Pizzaria Simulator. This game ran absolutely fine and I had a great experience playing it. In Ultimate Custom Night, the card got around 35 FPS, which makes for a great experience. Time to throw some more intensive games at this card. First off, Euro Truck Simulator 2. On low settings with 75% scaling, this card got an average FPS of 40, with 1% lows of 33 FPS and 0.1% lows of 3 FPS. The game did not look too bad at these settings, so I would recommend this game if you use this card. Bus Simulator 12 would not run. It would load up, but every time you loaded into the game, you would just be on this black screen. The next game that I tested was CSGO. On medium settings I got a max FPS of 130 in the benchmark, while in game I was hovering around 60 to 70 FPS. This game is for sure playable. Alright, the next game that I tested was BeamNG Drive. On the lowest settings the card managed to get an average FPS of 36, with 1% lows of 26 FPS and 0.1% lows of 2 FPS. BeamNG Drive is also a title that can be played with this card. Now we're getting into the more modern games. Starting off with Bus Simulator 16. On the lowest settings in the 800 by 600 resolution, this game was actually playable. The card managed to get an average FPS of 43 with 1% loads of 24 FPS and 0.1% loads of 12 FPS. In game you could still see through the horrible resolution, but anytime that there was text on screen, the text would just look like a mess. The next game on the list was PC Building Simulator. On the lowest settings in the 1024 by 768 resolution, this game got an average FPS of 23 with 1% loads of 15 FPS and 0.1% loads of 9 FPS. It's still playable, but that's mainly due to this game being more of a relaxing game, as sub 30 FPS is not really all that good. Time for a game that I did not expect to run as well as that it did. Fortnite of all games was perfectly playable. On the lowest settings with a 3D resolution of 35%, this game got an average FPS of 60 with 1% loads of 17 FPS and 0.1% loads of 7 FPS. It looks like Fortnite is a game that you can play on this card. The last game that I tested was GTA 5. On low settings in a resolution of 1366 by 768, this game was perfectly playable. I got an average FPS of 37 with 1% loads of 24 FPS and 0.1% loads of 22 FPS. This game was probably after Fortnite the most surprising game in how well it ran on this card. Alright, time to uninstall the drivers and shut the PC down. Now, what is my final opinion on this card? This card definitely surprised me in what it is capable of, but I still think that this card is pretty weak, especially in terms of gaming. Of course it has a small cooler and all, but then again this card was more made to sit in a home theater PC and play 1080p or 1440p content. For light gaming I would recommend this card, but I would suggest looking for a bigger version since this card is downclocked so it stays cool. Overall my experience with this card was positive and it's still perfectly usable in 2021. And with that, this video comes to an end. Thanks so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye!